All right, anyway, Loot Goblin Marketplace video.
100% of the time. While we enjoy covering how to better conduct ourselves at the table based on the stories we read online, there is no guarantee.
They basically read like horror stories, like tabletop game horror stories on like Reddit.
We are operating with the full picture. The only way to know for sure what is going on at your table is to simply sit down and talk with them. You'll find that something that may have seemed small and went completely unnoticed by you is the main problem that another has at the table. Most tables are reasonable and won't end up on RPG horror stories. So as long as you don't let the small things grow into massive problems, you should be safe. So speaking of massive problems and just RPG horror stories in general, I'm doing a remake of a very old one. It feels appropriate because it was set around Valentine's Day. Me and Loot Goblina had to go out.
Yeah, if you didn't know, like if you're here, like mostly because like on YouTube, I do like a lot of political content. Tabletop games is my actual passion. That's what I actually care about. I care about, don't get me wrong, I like political stuff. I love watching it. I love like understanding it. But I don't wake up every morning like, oh, can't wait to see the new drama on the internet. Can't wait to see the new politics. What are they doing in DC? Like, I don't give a fuck about that, to be honest.
Dinner together. So I apologize for the tardiness, but I'm pretty sure she multi-classed into barbarian and I didn't want to test out that new rage feature she got a hold of. Love, it makes you do some crazy things, and today's treasure is no different. It goes by the name Player Attempts to Seduce DM, both in character and out of character, causes complete collapse of the gaming group and even an in real life breakup. But before I go any further, I wanted to give D&D Dice a shout out, my favorite dice shop and where half of my paycheck goes to every month. They've got a lot of options, including their original 11-piece dice sets that they—
What? D&D Dice? I love dice, guys. I'm really into crazy dice. Did I show you guys my dice that has like mushrooms in it? It's like super cute. Damn, it looks really cool. I like the etchings with the little pixel etchings.
Called a King of Crits series. Be sure to use the code LootGoblin to support the channel at dnddice.com, or you can
I had a pair of stone dice. I had some rose quartz dice, but I gave it to my brother.
Click the link down in that video description.
They were really fucking nice.
Out with your favorite dice. As an edgelord myself, my favorite collections are the Plague Doctor and Blood Hunter 11-piece sets, which I use alongside their Tomb of the Lich dice tower. Anyways, back to the video.
Well, into dice. That way I can say my dice are traditional. Am I a monster?
That's kind of cool, actually.
Well, guys, this is the only real horror story I have, and unfortunately, it is one completely suited to Valentine's Day, although in an utterly twisted manner. Very not safe for work. The whole situation was bizarre, unexpected, and completely out of nowhere, in a rapid and complete fiery implosion of the group that rivaled the Hindenburg in terms of suddenness and sheer scale of catastrophic collapse. So sit back, dear reader, and indulge this tale of deceit, coercion, questionable sexual appetites, breakups, and of course cringe. Lots and lots of cringe. The cast consists of names
Is it really a good D&D hell story if it doesn't have cringe?
The Dungeon Master. Dave, my roommate playing a half-orc fighter, was not present for the session in question, which is relevant later. Annie, Dave's girlfriend, playing a half-elf cleric. Rich, a friend of mine and Dave's, playing a zany gnome sorcerer. Trish, the problem player, a foxfolk, which is just a reskinned Tabaxi Bard, because of course she bloody was. She could also never quite decide whether this person was more cat or more fox or both. It was weird. So we cast our minds back to the days of yore, 2013. I was at university and we were playing 3.5 edition Dungeons and Dragons. For context, I'm not really the typical nerd archetype. I'm fairly tall, fairly muscular, and my biggest interest outside of TTRPGs, science, maths, nerdy movies, and video games is playing rugby, and I was on the uni team. I am, or was, being an adult sucks, something of a socialite. I like to host parties. I love being the center of attention.
What a normie.
I love singing. In short, my highest—
What a normie.
IRL stat is charisma. My lowest apparently is wisdom. Yes, I am a dude bro. Yes, the exact stereotype you're currently thinking of. That one. Me. Okay, watch out bros. We got a Giga Chad on our hands. Let's see exactly what this
That's what I was
self-proclaimed
thinking
dude bro
too.
has in store for us today. After one such get-together at my place, which was inevitably always a strange mix of guys from the rugby team, my course mates, I studied physics, and my flatmates, their mates, etc. We got a British Giga Chad here? Myself, Dave, and Annie were talking. I suggested the idea of running a D&D game, and they were both into it. Neither of them played before, but Dave informed me that our mutual friend Rich played, which I didn't know, and Annie said that she had a friend that would be super excited to join because she was obsessed with TTR.
When did D&D get to the point that it wasn't nasty to play it anymore? I don't mean nasty like in terms of like I thought it was nasty, but like everyone thought it was like super nerdy and like, wow, that's so lame. You play D&D. Dude, everyone was like that before. Back when I played it, now everybody like thinks it's cool.
RPGs. Enter Trish. Trish was the only person who attended that I didn't know, which naturally made her something of a wild card. But being the social person I am, it didn't bother me at all, and when I first met her, all seemed fine. She was lively and excitable. Her and Annie both did practical.
I remember like before I had to buy like when I was a kid and I went to go buy like D&D stuff, I had to go into like the fucking basement of like this shopping center. They had like a small store that had it.
Effect designs, and she was artsy and enthusiastic with a real twinkle in her eye, which I would realize all too late wasn't a twinkle but the barely perceptible electrical feedback which indicated the short-circuiting of sanity wires in her brain. I thought she would be a joy at the table, rolling dice with us. If I had only known the depth of the anime love interest complex she apparently had.
No, that means I'm a goblin. I have like a whole bat. I have a sack of dice on my desk. I have like a giant like sack of dice on my desk.
I might have realized that the rattling noise wasn't her dice tower, but those loose marbles rattling around in her head. So anyways, from the very first session, the group was great, and everyone's characters were fun, if a little tropey. This is why I didn't bat an eyelid at Trish playing up that bard, and hitting on every NPC. We all had a good laugh about it, and I responded.
Why are bard players like this, guys? It's always the fucking bard player that's like a huge slut.
With NPCs flirting or not flirting in the exact same manner as they would with Dave's character, who often tried his luck, to all of our amusement, with his -1 to charisma checks. Thus, I thought it was all in good fun, and so did everyone else. Because nobody could be insane enough to think that an imaginary character interacting automatically meant the DM wants to bone them. Right? I think we've read enough stories to know the answer to that. Anyway, getting ahead of myself.
Wait, hold on.
Right?
Nobody would be insane enough to think that imaginary characters interact.
I think we've read enough stories to know the answer to that. Anyway, getting ahead of myself a little here, there were some red flags. Minor ones by the standards of this subreddit, to be sure. These include highlights such as Trish being a little obsessive about anime and talking about her perfect man being an exact description of some protagonist from a particular—
Wait, which anime though? You can't hide that. You can't withhold that information from us. You can't say that that the perfect man was a protagonist for a particular anime and not tell us. Thanks for the bits. Thank you.
The name of which I don't remember, and the way in which she described her Tabaxi, complete with big innocent doe eyes and playful curves and swaying hips. She also showed up wearing fox ears at one point. I thought she was just really getting into the game and playing into her character, which in a really disturbing sort of way was right on the money. She also had a weird habit of maintaining eye contact with me for—
It's just like awoken, like a dark memory. I had like these cat ears that I used to wear, but it's not because they were cat ears necessarily. It's because I thought the technology was really cool. They were those ones that they were controlled by your mind. And you know what I'm talking about? The ones that they move and they're like controlled by your mind. And I thought they were super cool. So I had them. And I wore them
uncomfortably long periods of time. But I, with my IRL dump stat and wisdom, didn't put it together that she might have a crush on me, in case where this story is leading wasn't horrifyingly obvious. I was enjoying the game and the immersion. Everyone spent a lot of time talking in character and really getting into it.
You fucking nerd. You're talking to the person that used to like climb trees and sit at the top of a tree and read books. because I thought it was cool.
including Dave and Annie, who had been a little hesitant about roleplay at first. Trish spent almost no time whatsoever talking out a character. Another mild red flag that I overlooked entirely, but one that stands out from the rest in this little retrospective. Now, even knowing how this story goes, a lot of these don't really strike me as red flags. I think he's only attributing it because it goes south, really, because truth be told, one person is usually always going to be a little more over enthusiastic about role playing than the others. And if it's not the DM and it's another player, that's kind of even better because usually they can have an easier time convincing the rest of the table to play into it a little bit. And I do think it's kind of funny that he's coming off as someone who's shocked that a person at his table is obsessed with anime. Yeah, talking about your dating life and comparing it to protagonists of different anime are kind of cringe, but you're going to have your fair share of guys describing their ideal woman
Simon.
to date in their tabletop setting as a waifu. So, I mean, it's not really that shocking to hear the opposite of it. All right, I think it's fair enough to say we've pushed back on the GigaChad DM. Let's see what exactly happened. Back to the story. And so, dear reader, begins the fateful night. Note that Dave, my roommate, was not present for this session, for the night is dark and full of fox-eared discomfort. It was a roleplay heavy session. The previous had been a sizable combat session with one of the villains, and a small side story arc had been completed. So there was a lot of looting, paying off debts and favors.
Did we ever do a video, like, Julio, did we ever do a video about the succubus girl player that was in the tabletop game? Did we ever do the video on that? Because I know I told the story on stream. Also, I forgot to record this.
Collecting accolades, drinking in bars, being paraded around the shoulders of the liberated village, all the normal tropes. This also coincided with the end of our second year exam period, so we were in an IRL similar mood. Everyone was having a great time in a low pressure session, drinking a decent amount both IRL and in game. Everyone was smiling and having fun. Trisha's character decided that tonight was the night to try and get it on with the burly human bartender NPC she had been flirting with throughout the campaign whenever this town. Again, I only picked this up in retrospect, but this was the NPC who was most closely, although not even that closely, resembling me in how I described them, and she had targeted this NPC repeatedly. Anyways, in the revelry of the villain's defeat and the town celebration, she succeeded on her seduction role for this poor bartender. Made a joke about them going off to have very scratchy cat sex, for which he probably needed his back bandaged, and attempted a fade to black. Trish was having none of it. Obviously, she wanted to vicariously play out this encounter between these two abstractions in a display that would have Sigmund Freud himself making the concerned Tom face. She interjected, describing how her character wanted for him to go and get her drinks, before taking off all her clothes, changing into just one of his thin shirts, and waiting on his bed in a seductive pose. And began to purr. And she has a creepy, lascivious look in her eyes while she describes it. But fine, she's had a couple drinks and is a bit too into it. I again try with, and he sees you, he shuts the door.
I can't imagine fucking playing. See, guys, this is why I can't imagine playing tabletop in person. It's like, this is so fucking weird.
Behind himself with a smile. Anyway, back to the bar. Flupperdunk is in the midst of his absurd levitating tankards performance when Trish again interjects, pouting a little this time. She describes how her character stares into his green eyes. My eyes are green. The NPC was described as having blue eyes, and runs her clawed fingers through his brown hair. Again, you guessed it, it matches descriptions with me and not the NPC. She is now positively leering at me like I'm a cartoon steak. Rich catches onto this and looks as uncomfortable as I feel. Annie is giggling. I assume this was just nervous laughter. Not so. I quite firmly cut to black this time, but Trish looks oddly satisfied and spends the rest of the session, which lasts less.
Online, you could be like, go to DMs, bye. Yeah, and you could also just leave. I've had situations like that where everyone just quit, basically. Like, it's over, man.
So there I was, just watching a normal react video of yours. Then you announce harpies in your RPG and really try to sell us on Cloaca.
What?
Harpy Cloaca. Why?
Thank you for the bits. We did add harpies. We added harpies last match.
than half an hour just staring at me and exchanging looks with Annie. At the end of the session, I sat with the three of them, finishing drinks before they all headed home. Trish asks to use the bathroom and excuses herself. Annie then gets up and declares that she's going home and asks if poor innocent bystander Rich will walk her across campus. They abruptly leave. I wait for Trish to come out of my room for 5 minutes. At this point, I'm like, if she's taking a dump in there, that's such an absolute piss take. Just wait until you get home. So I walk into my room, preparing to knock on the bathroom door. And do you know what I see? I see Trish and what? Dear reader, do you expect that she's wearing? Yep, that's right. There's a pile of her clothes and underwear at the foot of my bed, and her sole item of clothing is one of my t-shirts and those damn fox ears, lying in what she apparently thought a seductive pose.
Oh my god, this is literally like some Tomoko shit from fucking Watamote, dude.
It heard the word seduction was in Japanese, and the sentence ended with senpai.
She said
And as if this scene wasn't absurd and insane enough, she also purrs at me before giving me this look, which basically amounted to her stuffing as much of her bottom lip under her teeth as is reasonably possible in what appeared to be an attempt to devour her own chin, and blinking rapidly like she was trying to.
This is so bad. This is so bad.
Convey something in Morse code. Now Trish is not.
This sounds almost fake. Like this is too much.
An unattractive woman.
This is becoming like unbelievable now.
By any means, even in the midst of a mating ritual, considerably more bizarre than anything I've heard Sir David Attenborough narrate. But I'm absolutely not into her whatsoever. I do not see her in that way, and honestly, I find her a bit weird. Shocking, I know. This should be a good enough reason on its own, but what takes this from just uncomfortable and awkward to shockingly inappropriate is that at this time, I had a girlfriend, which she and everyone else at the table knew. At this point, I'm standing in the doorway, probably looking like I've seen a ghost, and my brain is turned to mush trying to decipher the incomprehensible spectacle unfolding before my eyes. She then stops, deep-throating her chin and says, if you want your t-shirt back...
Dude, it sounds like it. It really does. Thank you for the
have
bits.
to take it off me. I am now legitimately pissed off with her with this level of inappropriate behavior. I tell her as calmly as possible that she can keep the t-shirt, but she needs to leave. She scowls at me, and I truly wish I was joking, hisses at me like a cat. Despite how deeply uncomfortable and annoyed I am, it is an act of such sheer abject absurdity that I cannot help but burst out laughing. She immediately loses her shit, grabs her clothing in a bundle.
Yu-Gi-Oh at this point, Lamau. You got magicians, harpies, warriors. What's next? Jar of greed as a knight.
And runs outside my flat in just my t-shirt, not stopping to even put on underwear, screaming at me the
Thank you, Shago. Thank you.
whole way. Apparently either Annie or Rich had forgotten something, so they're about 100 meters away, walking back towards the flats. They and everyone else around sees this 2/3 naked cat fox woman throwing a hyper tantrum over getting rejected, creating an utter spectacle in the quad, which is overlooked by several blocks of halls, not to mention other students who had just happened to be outside. I would have been mortified if I wasn't too busy being somewhere between utter speechless disbelief and repressing uncontrolled mirth. Annie runs over and throws her coat over the now hysterically crying Trish and then starts berating me herself.
You know, okay, guys, hear me out though. I think people like this can exist. I definitely think they can exist because I remember people that were like just as bad.
Calling me selfish and ungrateful and telling me how Trish is better for me than my then girlfriend. I'm in utter shock and disbelief at this point. This is totally out of character for Annie. Not knowing what to do in the midst of this bizarre and mutually humiliating meltdown, I just give an apologetic wave and grimace to Rich, go inside and close the door. I call Dave and fill him in on whatever the hell just happened. He's as baffled, shocked, and angry as I am, especially after I describe Annie's reaction. He calls her and demands to know what the hell is going on. As it turns out, Trish Trish and Annie had concocted the events of the evening together. Annie had informed Trish that Dave would not be present, making it a good night to make her move, and Trish had apparently described the rest of her cringe-inducing, misguided plan. This is also why Annie was giggling at Trish's in-character shenanigans earlier in the night, and why she had so abruptly convinced Rich to leave with her when Trish had asked to use my bathroom. This, it seems, was the signal. Dave called me almost 2 hours later, which was almost 4 a.m. by this point, and said that she had a huge argument and shouting match with Annie over the phone, and that they had broken up. I received a text from Rich the next day saying he didn't want to play with us anymore because he couldn't handle the drama. Although I explained to him that Trish would absolutely not be there again, I couldn't really begrudge his decision to leave, with such a sour taste in his mouth. I blocked Trish's number almost immediately after she left, and the only correspondence I had with Annie was a text from her that just said, "Man, this story's so British, even the slur here is British. It's the C one." Before I blocked her too. Dave and I have never played D&D together again, though we're still friends to this day.
Dude.
So that's it, Reddit. That's my one and only horror story, and most of it had absolutely nothing to do with the actual game. Sometimes the creepy predatory weirdo isn't a basement-dwelling neckbeard, but a pretty girl of half your size.
Why is it always... I feel like when it comes to like D&D specifically, that the ratio of like what the fuck crazy in like girls is way higher than like other internet activities.
And with more screws loose than a piece of IKEA furniture your grandma tried to put together, who apparently thinks acting like an anime cat fox woman is the height of seduction. And that concludes the story. I like that you mentioned that a lot of the
some people are
problems
into
at the table
that.
really weren't directly related to the game. I feel like that's all too common on RPG horror stories where someone's doing something that wouldn't be okay in any other hobby, and sometimes people are doing stuff that's straight up criminal, so it wouldn't be okay in any setting. Now this was just a situation where it seemed like Trish was doing sexual jokes at the table. You were playing into it well. Annie, after every session's like, dude, there's totally a chemistry there. And you were there thinking, yeah, you know, Dave does sex jokes. I respond in turn. We do a bit. I do a bit with her. She's playing that bard. That's super funny, super tropey. If Annie keeps saying that you guys would be such a great couple, and she wants to do the thing where Dave and her and you and Trish go on double dates and you all play D&D and everything's happy-go-lucky. Unfortunately, I don't know how you preface that in a session 0 where it's like, I'm not cheating on my girlfriend with anyone at this table, so don't bring it.
You gotta put it on the sheet. You know, the what do you call it? The no sheet. No, seducing me because I'm taken. You put that on the fucking sheet. The consent form.
That would be kind of a crazy thing to say out loud, so I totally get, like, it's hard to deal with that. And that's maybe just a situation where, yeah, this was doomed to fail, actually. I mean, looking at the quote you did before the triple fade to black, that was pretty explicit. And don't get me wrong, I've definitely heard raunchy at the table. Luckily, it's from people who didn't have any ulterior motives, like they weren't hinting at something greater. But it's people that I've known for a long time, and unfortunately for you, the person who was making these jokes and you were joking back with was the stranger at the table. I feel bad for Dave. I feel bad for Rich. I even feel bad a little bit for Annie and Trish because it seems like at least Annie was a new player. She totally made the mistake that too many people do in these horror stories where they think character interactions means real life interactions. And as a DM, you know, interacting with players, you're going to have so many different characters you're playing that eventually one of them is bound to be friendly. And that's why romance is such a tricky thing at the table. You can play 99 people that completely hate their player character, but the one that seems a little overly nice, if they want to look into it too much, they have a crush on you in real life, they're going to be like, oh, this is the one where he's finally admitting he's into me. Tonight's the night. So yeah, just be careful when you cover sexual themes at the table, everyone. I don't want to sound like a prude or a buzzkill, but man, how many times have we read stories like this where someone's like, your character is into my character, which means we're basically a couple or basically married now? It's got to keep showing up for a reason, right? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. This was a story I was super eager to cover again. I wanted to wait until Valentine's Day. And if you want to support the—
I'm like watching this freaking graphic, like hypnotized, because I used to have to do this. I was like, oh, we put a little, he did a little bounce effect and he like probably copy pasted it, like saved the effect. And then he basically cut up his audio and then he changed it like every sentence or so Cause like I used to do this, like literally.
Channel. You can become a member. I'd recommend checking out D&D Dice. Any sale that you use with the Loot Goblin code helps support me, and it's a place that I order from regularly. I've actually gone there in person because I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like a warehouse like reselling dice. They have their people there. They have their graphic designer in house who makes all their original designs for King of Crits. It's really cool to see, and they have a really cool showroom where everything's on display that they have for sale. So definitely go check it out. I hope to see you in the next video. Farewell for now.
So that's good videos. I really like his stuff. Man, that's crazy. That's what, dude. That's why I can't even imagine playing like D&D in real life. I've done it a couple times, but oh